Okay. Can you hear me? Give me a shout out in chat. And it takes 30 seconds. So let me see if I can hear it as well. The OBS software says I'm streaming. There we go. I hear my audio. There we go. All right. Welcome. Day two of the live streaming. In chat, let me know if anything goes weird, like I forget to share my screen or the audio goes funky. We're getting double. A million weird things have happened to me in the past. And today's my fun day. We're going to get in and we're going to sculpt the figure. And we're going to, maybe I'll bring some reference in. Maybe I'll just work from my head. We'll see what we do. But let's get started. Okay. So I want to start off with us talking about what we're doing. All right, so Anatomy for Artists is dropping. It is dropped. It's there. You got 3 days left to sign up for that. It is 4 courses, guys. Anatomy of the torso, sculpting the head, anatomy of the arm, and anatomy of the leg. Okay, the anatomy of the torso is already 63 modules. Sculpting and constructing the head is 20. By the end of this week, it should be 30. Anatomy of the arm and leg should be done in September of this year. All right. So you're getting 4 courses for the price of 1. In here, we're going to talk a little bit about it. You can see the model that we use inside this. And if you don't know me, I'm Ryan, and I help build ZBrush. My anatomy figure is in that, so I have already helped train thousands, tens of thousands of people. It's in the free version on the iPad. You can get my anatomy figure for free right now. All right, I've also built the rake brush and some infamous projects like Demo Head and Demo Soldier. I traditionally trained at PAFA, right, long time ago, right when the internet was coming on, AOL and that crazy sound. All right. What we are going to be doing is learning anatomy the way I think you should learn it, which is through digital sculpture. That's the most important thing, and I'm going to show you why today. Hopefully by the end of today, you're inspired to do it. You're getting 4 courses for the price of 1. You're getting anatomy of the torso, sculpting and constructing the head. All of these heads that you see here, these are all from imagination. That's my goal for you, okay? So I want you to get in. There's 2 options. Well, there's 3 options. You can check us out for free. You can get in on a one-time payment, which is the cheapest, or if that doesn't work, there's 4 monthly payments, all right? So this is coming up, ends in 3 days. Let's unpack this a little bit before I get in and start sculpting. I want to show you guys what we've got, what I'm focused on. Let me make sure my outline is visible. There we go. There we go. All right. So these are all the modules for the torso class. So there's a lot of stuff. And in the beginning, we talk about the basics, like how to do the anatomy draw overs. And you're getting scans that you can draw over on. So these are all part of the course, the paid course. And there's a lot of them to work with. We do everything like identify the bony landmarks. All right, and I have a particular way that I like to identify them. This module, you can see it's 7 minutes long, and you're in here and just identifying all of these landmarks. We're going to sculpt the skull. I'm going to introduce you guys into modeling and assembling the spine. We're going to get into the rib cage, and we're going to sculpt it a bit. I'm not a big fan of sculpting all the bones. That's a little cray-cray. Pelvis is something that throws people a lot. So we're going to get in and we're going to talk about the pelvis, the simple shape of the pelvis, which is a bucket, and then the more complex shape of the pelvis. We're going to talk about the shoulder girdle, right? And so making sure that you're in there and sculpting all of that lovely stuff. And then we get into our educational loop. All right, and this is the important part of the course, the educational loop, which means in the very beginning, you are sculpting the muscle. So this is what they call écorché. All right, and écorché is the single most powerful thing you can do. If you don't take my course, still make your own écorché. Then, once you've made your écorché, you're going to go in and you're going to draw on the model where you think the écorché should be and what are the component parts. That's really important to what we're doing in the class. Once you've identified on the surface, which is going to include fascia, skin, fat, not a lot of fat on this guy, but it's going to include a bunch of stuff. Then you go in and you try to sculpt it. I don't know, let me see if I can get to one that doesn't have any significant nudity. That should probably be prefaced. There we go. Whew. Hopefully the sensors don't hit me. In here, we do a couple of things. This one specifically, we are working with the training wheels on. In this lesson, you are actually sculpting with the model right there on the surface, visible, so that you can break it down and understand the planes. And again, that's the training wheels version of it, right? And then as we go and we get a little bit stronger, let's take a look. See all the lower back? We get into the multifidus, the spinalis, like all of these muscles that make up this part of the lower back. You're going to actually build those in écorché. And then let's see if we can sculpt the lower back in pose. Yeah, that's a good one. Now you're going to get in, you're going to learn a little bit about my method of sculpting, which you're going to get to see today, actually. And you're going to not just identify the muscle, but you're going to learn to actually sculpt it in the context of all the other muscles around it. This is something that no other anatomy class that I know of does, where you hit that loop of you're drawing it, you're building it in écorché, and you're actually sculpting it directly from a life model in the best way that we can as digital sculptors, which is by working with scans. You're going to learn a lot about the form and all of that. And the head is the same, where you're going to do the dissection. And in this case, when you do the eyeball, you're going to do things like build the eyeball. But the other thing you're going to do is learn about the tarsal plates. And then you're going to learn about what we call, what's called the palpebral raphe. And so the palpebral raphe, these are the ligaments that connect the tarsal plates to the actual bone. You learn about this before you get in and you actually build the orbicularis oculi. And then, of course, écorché, build all of that good fun stuff, and voila. All right. And then you're also going to have sculpting exercises where you are copying from one of the ancients. And so this is a carving in the Capitoline Museum in Rome. And this is a fantastic scan of it. So we copy one of those features, or we learn from one of those features, as you can see me doing here. All of this, and it's coming down to the fat pads. There's a make pretty button that we talk about where we actually take the écorché and we start to convert that over into Michelangelo's sculptor carving of for Giuliano, the tomb of Giuliano de' Medici. It actually works out pretty cool. I kind of like that. That might become my default. All right. So you're going to get this entire thing where you're getting, oh, thank you. You're so kind. You're going to get all of these. You're going to get the head. You're going to get the arm when that comes out. You're going to get the leg when that comes out. And that is all pretty low price, guys. So that's what we're talking about today. Make sure you guys follow me on Instagram. If you go to Instagram, Ryan Kingslien, you can find me here. And this is where I do a lot of my work. You can also find me on YouTube. Okay, so that's what we've got. I think this is a pretty good deal. And you have 3 days to get your head around all of this and get yourself into the program. All right, really looking forward to working with all of you guys. I've been doing this 30 years since I went to the Academy of Art College in San Francisco for 1 semester. So poor. I lived in my job and my work. I lived in the same place. I was in a residential, like a retirement home, and I was the night watch guard. And then during the day, I'd go to classes. Such a rough life. Oh my God. Anyways, I took a piece of clay with me to Golden Gate Park and found a sculpture and started sculpting a little cherub that was just down there at the base of it. And that was 30 years ago. And I've been in love with sculpture ever since. I'm in love with anatomy, studying this, studying form. And I'm really excited to kind of share with you guys my passion for this. So join me at kingslien.art. You know, you got 3 days and we will get in and learn something, master something, and grow as artists. That's the stuff that makes me happy. All right. So any questions? Put them in chat. Right now, what I want you to think about is, what do you struggle with in figure sculpting? And then just put that in the chat. I got my chat box over here. So that's why I'm talking. Put that in chat and tell me, what are the biggest struggles that you have? All right. And then also, some people have asked before, share this link. By all means, get as many people in to watch this. These videos will be here for until the drop day is done, and then after that, I take them all down and I edit them and try to make something nice out of them and put them in the course. All right. Tell me, what's the one problem that you got with sculpting the figure? All right, let's get ourselves. Let me clean this up a little bit. I got a whole bunch of crazy. Yeah. Let's get rid of Discord. That can cause me some trouble. And there we go. Here's a figure. It's kind of an interesting thing that we're doing here. This is what we're going to start with. It's an old school way. And it leads us from the way that we would traditionally sculpt to the way in which we will sculpt digitally. I thought this might be a really nice, fun exercise for us all. Let's get Photoshop working though. The first thing that we've got to do is in 2D. All right, and so what we want to do right off the bat, and let me hit record. Woo! I almost wasn't recording this, and then the volume, everything's really low. Let's go new file. That's going to be fine. Okay. The first step, and I'm just going to do this in a basic. With a basic brush. I'm not going to make this look pretty. Draw a line and divide it in half. That's roughly half. Then draw that and divide that in half. That's not half. Something's wrong. Let me move the... Yeah, there you go. And then pull that down. And this you can do with me. All right. Now, let's draw on again. And I think I have to reset this again. So annoying. One sec. Let me... all right, sorry, that might have been a little loud. I needed to change the microphone. Okay. I have a problem. 2 seconds, let me address my problem. Okay, there Sorry. And turn that off. All right, FJ is asking, is it lifetime access? And yes, it is. Mike, getting the pelvis in the right orientation of connecting to the other parts is your problem, is his problem. Stark problem is properly applying forms with the flow and not getting lumpy. And Teresa saying, I think in general terms, I struggle with the entire back. Yeah, not alone. But there's easy strategies for that. All right. So let's start with what I call the figure grid. So we are going to divide this into eighths, which you saw me do. It's basically you divide it in half, 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 half. You just keep dividing in halves until you have something like this. And then the next thing we do, does this have transparency? There we go. You got to at least have some of that. Perfect. The first exercise teaches us the masses and proportions. Okay, and proportions are done in one head unit for the most part. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I feel like they're off. Yeah, they're off in some places. So, okay. We're going to go one head. We're going to go one pelvis, one head for the pelvis. And we're going to go like 1 3/4 for the rib cage. Okay, so it's going to be one head. This is one head. And then the rib cage is going to be 1.75 heads. The knee is going to show up right above this. Let's call that 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay. The knee is going to show up right there, and the knee is roughly half of a head. All right, then that's going to drop down, and the foot is going to be roughly 1/3. Okay, this is the rough, right? And I'm drawing it rough and really loose, on purpose. I'm not trying to make something pretty. I don't want you to get stuck on making something pretty yet. All right, the neck. Let's talk about the neck. This should be the chin. This should be the top, and I actually think the head is off. Yeah, it's just a little bit too big. When you get good at this, you know you're getting good when you start to feel like small millimeter changes in something. There you go. All right, that'll be good enough. Now, from here to the 2 head, this is where the nipples are. The pit of the neck, let's just divide that in half. Actually, let's do this in thirds. The pit of the neck is going to be roughly 1/3 of the way down. Let's do that. It's going to be somewhere between 1/3 and 1/2, essentially. Depends on how long the person's neck is. And so this is, this is a genetics thing. A ballerina will train to lower their shoulders, which will extend their neck or make their neck look longer, but it's largely genetics. So I'm going to put the pit of the neck right below that 1/3 marker, and then that'll put my shoulders straight out like this. And then we can go in and let's check the side. There you go. So then that'll be one head this way. And let's do one head roughly this way. And again, these are rough. The clavicle is going to go out 0.75. And then straight down from the clavicle, sort of actually. From the clavicle, you get the acromion process, and then down below that, that's going to be the head of the humerus. So we can, and that's why we've got to figure all of this out. So that's going to be the clavicle, head of the humerus. There you go. Now from that head of the humerus, we're going to go down 1.5 heads. So it's almost right there. That's the arm. And then you're going to go 1.25 heads, and that's going to be the lower arm, right? And then the hand is going to come down from there. And now this isn't, some people have longer arms than others. So for example, my hands, when they're at rest, my knees or my fingers almost come to my kneecap, basically. Because if you look at this knee, the top half of that knee, that's where the patella is. So the tip of my fingers can almost touch my knee, which means I got some long arms. So when I wear a suit, I have to wear an L. Let me check on this. Okay. Give me a quick note when you guys hear this. Is the audio still coming across well and you seeing my screen okay? I'm going to keep going, but just give me a note so I can keep an eye on that. This is basic proportional measurements. If the pit of the neck is right here at 1/3, I'm all the way up here at the top. We're going to draw an ellipse because that's the first rib. Actually, the first rib is going to be a little bit lower. Let's go down and draw the first rib a little bit lower than that. The back of that's going to be C7. Okay, we're going to pull a neck down. Okay, and then from that neck, we are going to pull out the rib cage. And if you take this entire measurement of the rib cage all the way down to the 3rd head mark, right? So this is the 3rd head. We're going to take from right there at the top of C7. If you take all of that and you come down and divide that into thirds, or even, I think we could even get away with, if you divide that in half, and then this is 3/4. If you take that line, this is the rib cage is going to build volume all the way until it gets down to that line. And then it's going to come in and start to fill in its space, okay? The rib cage in a male, which is what we're sculpting, is going to be 1.25 heads wide. So let me just see if I can get that measurement. I got it roughly accurate. That's roughly, it's just a little bit more, but that's 1.25 wide. All right, Teresa says, can hear me, Fedid, says all good. All right. Then what we'll do is take a line straight down from the rib cage. Just take that line straight down. All right, now we're going to go to the 4th head line, and right there, that's the pubic symphysis. And the pubic symphysis can be above and below, but we're just going to put it right about like that. The head, the pelvis fits into a box, okay? And the box can be divided into thirds, right? And 1/3, that's the pubic symphysis. On the next third, that's the ASIS. And actually, let's do this proper. This is not entirely accurate. This is a simplification, and actually it does cause problems. So that's why I'm giving you a warning right now. Usually, the pubic symphysis can drop really low. There's a lot that can happen here, especially with men when the pelvis actually gets quite large. But let's continue this. The line of the ilium breaks that profile a little bit and comes in. And then we have our sacrum for the back. And then there's a little V shape underneath this where you get the ischiums, right? So that's a pelvis. What's important to know about this, let's do this in red, is that's the pubic symphysis right there, right? This is the pubic symphysis. So what happens is that this entire structure drops. The pelvis drops down below the 4-head mark. based on where that pubic symphysis is. And then we have something that goes like this. And then from here, the great trochanter. All right. And then we're back into business. The knee, as I said, the knee fits into a square. The square is divided in half. On the top part is the femur. The patella sits right in front. The bottom part is the head of the tibia. So that's going to come down. You can see I drew those feet totally wrong, but that's okay. All right. Now there's a couple of really interesting shapes that happen, but this is kind of the core proportional system that we're going to use. Okay, one, the head has a cranium, a cranial sphere, and a facial wedge. The upper body has this shield that I'm going to draw. It's going to go from acromion to acromion like this. And then it drops down and it serves our lats like that. That shape, if you know that, this is going to be one of the really powerful parts of digital sculpting, is you're going to be able to quite quickly put something in once you have a sense of all of that. Okay. Now, with all that done and said, let's move that off to the side. And then real quickly, when we work with a head, or work with a side view, sorry, just be mindful that you're going to have certain gestures that you need to keep in place. Okay, so that's roughly what we're going to get with the side view. Yeah, that's more accurate, side view. There we go. All right, that's 50-year-old. Okay, we have a special side view that's anatomically superior to all these heroic yahoos people keep sculpting. All right, how are we doing? All good. Now, how do we convert all of this into a sculpt? And that's what I'm going to show you now. But first, don't skip this part. This part's super important. I learned this. I'm able to draw this because I've drawn this so many times. So draw this 1,000 times and get your head around this as much as possible. If you're in ZBrush, what you're going to do is select a Z sphere, and then you go to floor, and you're going to turn, in floor they have this little thing, I don't know, can I see it? how do you do the auto zoom? 1 second. There is an auto zoom in ZBrush. And I totally forgot what it was. It's a simple hotkey. If anybody remembers the little zoom magnifying glass, that's what it is. Did I not assign a hotkey? Oh, Alt Control Z. That's a little dicey. Yeah, there we go. See how Y is activated? That's the floor. I'm going to unclick Y and click Z. All right. And then, importantly, I'm going to go to Draw. And notice that my grid size is set to 4. And my tile size is set to 4. Okay, and then I probably need to go and set my frame opacity a little bit higher so that you guys can actually see that. Okay. Now, what that has is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's got the same grid that I drew, only it's inside a ZBrush now. So now, make sure symmetry's on with your Z sphere, and you know if you don't have, if you don't have Z spheres, then you can, I don't know, use polygon modeling. I'm going to show you guys a RoboMan after this. There's a couple of different things that we can do. But I don't think that this is necessarily hugely proprietary to ZBrush, per se. Let's go Project, Dynamesh. I'm going to do all that floor stuff. 4, 4. Okay, select the Z sphere. Symmetry is on. Okay, and I'm going to scale this down. That's reasonable. I'm going to put that a little bit high. The way Z spheres work in ZBrush, you have to go into draw mode, and the best thing to do is to draw out all the Z spheres that you're going to use in a very simple fashion. If you do that, and this might confuse the hell out of some people, but it makes life easier once you learn this and you get the hang of it. It's just life gets a little bit easier. Or not. Did they change something? Let's undo that. What the bejesus? All right. That used to be much easier. We're going to put in the spine all the way to the head. I'm going to put a little root for the leg and then the leg itself. And then drag that all the way down. Put the pelvis out. Right? That's the great trochanters. Draw out a foot. Put that in the pelvis. We're going to go cute. Boom. There you go. I'm going to put one in for the neck. Right there. Z-spheres are round, so when you scale them up, you're also scaling in this view. That's one of the things that makes them a little dodgy. And then, there you go. So now I'm switching into move mode. I'm going to put those out there. Now I'll put that out to the hand. And then let's scale that in a little bit. And I just press scale to scale these in the shelf. The shelf here was originally 4 Z-spheres, and then Ofer built the gyro. So now we got this. I go into draw. Once you've got draw, you can actually just click to place Z-spheres, which is super nice because now I can go in and I can get the gesture of them. And I feel like these are just a little too big, so I'm going to scale all those down. All right, let's turn X on as well in our floor. And in our floor, I'm also going to set the ELV to 0. Put them all nice like that. Move. Let's get this up a little bit. Now, if you want, you can start to add specific gestures. So I'm going to scale that and move that forward to give a little bit more of a tip for that area. But I'm also going to come in and draw Z-spheres at these points in the middle so I can get a little bit more gesture. I'm going to pull that shoulder back. Let's turn perspective off. Pull those arms forward. And voila. All right. Nice and basic. There's no magic to this. It should be relatively simple. Okay. Now, once you've got that, we can go into adaptive skin and we can say make adaptive skin. And I'm going to just append that and make that a subtool. This feature was actually, Z subtool palette itself was invented after all of this. So I'm sure nowadays he probably would have just put it right there as and appended it. Okay. All right. Now, I'm going to show you now a traditional methodology. Okay. And I got my screen. I'm going to go on camera. We're going to talk about a traditional methodology now, atelier-centric. If you start looking at Google and sculpting, and nowadays you can actually see people doing this technique, which is an old technique. But the Florence Academy, Robert Bodum, Eric, a lot of people have really they've codified it, made it beautiful, really helped explain a lot of this. I mean, they've done an amazing job of bringing this incredible sculpting tool to the world. And the tool is building contours that then get filled in. And it teaches you to focus on the contour of a form. And how a small form has a contour that comes into another form that has a contour, which also teaches you to see everything as convexities, which is very important for us as sculptors. Surface form, there's many ways to think about it. The classical approach focuses on convexity. As you get into more modern work where it's like just your thumb on clay, Bordel, there's a lot of people, anybody after 1920, the clay and that surface, they didn't care about. So, to me, it doesn't have as much power. But what the Florence Academy, what Robert's done, what Eric's done, you got to check this out. We're going to go through that path. But then I'm going to show you how digital sculpting gives us superpowers and shows how weak these clay sculptors really are at the end of the day. Just weak. They can't compete. I mean, we're gonna wipe the floor with them, right? So, kidding. I sculpt in clay all the time. But ZBrush, digital sculpting, man, you get over the interface and all of that, the power, what it enables you to do, what it enables me to do to teach you is crazy. So right off the bat, let's focus on building a contour. And so I'm going to use the move brush, and I'm just going to, and you can turn the floor on, but I don't want to leave it on because when you stream, it refreshes the screen, and so if you have like a bunch of small stuff going on, it's like it's unpleasant. All right. That's a silhouette of a dude. Okay. I'm going to also do that for his legs. Got to be careful. And don't worry if it gets like really messy. I'm going to grab that knee. Let's get that leg. Let's get the calf. The calf muscle comes in on the inside like that a little bit. Cool. Get a little bit of shoulder in this guy, a little bit of neck. I'm going to go from the back and build a little bit of shape there. May need to, if I want to get this actual contour, and then let's turn floor on. And there we go. All right, I gotta be careful now because this silhouette is kind of working from one view, but not from a few others, right? So let's go ahead and see. Now, this is one of the benefits of this method. We get to look at the model from this side view and ask ourselves, is that where the contour is? Well, not really, right? And this is what we're going to start to study. So if you look at a rib cage, if you were to see the rib cage from the side view, is the contour line, the main contour line, is it directly halfway? Or is it back here a little bit? And this is what we want to study. We want to study and say, okay, well now if we're going to take a cross section of that rib cage, the form of that might be towards the front, and then the bulk, so if that's your half section, the back of the rib cage is where, you know, the bulk of that's going to be. There's your spine. And so we're going to have a lot of volume in the back and then come in forward like this. That's actually a fairly accurate cross section. Why is that not undoing? Minus my perspective there. The bulk of the rib cage is in the back. The bulk of the mass, anyways. So now what that means for me, let's go ahead and, actually we don't need to do that. We have polygroups. I'm going to move that contour back so it's towards the back of that form. And I'm going to say same thing kind of happens right there. But now I also have this opportunity to go in and to mask off, where is the rectangle? And establish the contour from a side view. All right. And so let's turn floor on. The rib cage should be about one head in depth. About like that. I'm using the clay brush and just sculpting really carefully. And then also, remember, this is the head. The neck comes back, and so if you say divide that in half, but then let's divide it in third, The pit of the neck should be right there. And then the rib cage comes out. And then we get our 8th rib and we get our form. And voila. Okay. So I'm going to leave that on the screen as I go through and I make this adjustment. C7. Flat spot for the clavicle. Sorry, not the clavicle, but the scapula. And that's roughly 1 head deep. And then in most males, in a female, let's say a thin female, if you're doing that, you're not going to have this much bulk in the rib cage, but you'll have a more S curve. In a male, you're going to actually get rid of that S curve, and you're going to have more of just like a tunk, just come straight down, and you'll have less booty as well. All right, now let's do this. Okay, pretty cool, huh? Now, this is what we would consider a classical kind of approach, so to speak. Let's turn perspective on. And the reason why we have this kind of classical sculpting approach is really because sculpting in clay is hard. There's mass, and you have to build up a form and then support the form. And so this approach is good because it trains you to think about the main contour of a form. And that means that you have to think about the most simplest form possible, right? Otherwise, you start to get a bunch of bumps. The reason why your sculpture is lumpy is because you're thinking about too much. You need to think about less. What's the one thing that really makes that form? And that's what you make. Okay, everything else can wait. So this method teaches you to see. But it's strategic for clay because, it's clay. It's not as powerful as ZBrush. They're doing the best they can, all right? Us ZBrushers, we don't do this because we don't have to. Pure and simple. But I want you to use this because it teaches you to see. And that's one of the advantages that you get studying clay, is that you can actually compare surfaces better than in digital sculpting. But it all ends, for me, it ends at this point, and then we pick up the contour line a little bit later once we've masked it in. Okay? All right, everything's still going well? You guys can all still hear me? I'm going to now I'm going to duplicate this. And now at this point, what I'm going to do is start to build in form. So I'm going to go into, I've duplicated, I'm going to go into maybe Dynamesh. Let's try Dynamesh. That's too much. That many polygons? That's too much. At this stage. I want something that's going to give me some simplicity. So let's go 64. Yeah, I like that. Look for any areas where the form is doing something like this. And in those areas, just fill it in. So I'm going to use my clay brush. And it's fixed, right? And that you want that. Okay. So now, once we have this kind of established, we actually get in and start to work like a digital sculptor. I'm going to turn backface masking on. And we get to just build masses in space. So the first mass I'm going to build is the rib cage. And we can get the arm out of the way because it's... It's not necessary. When we sculpt the rib cage, the back is a flatter plane. So do that early. Try to get the sweep of that rib because the rib cage's mass is in this bottom part right here. Okay, then I'll go with the pelvis. The pelvis, if you look at it from a cross section, right here I'm building it up, but the pelvis is actually going to be a box, whereas the rib cage is much rounder. So I'm using big brush. Am I thinking about the muscles here? Does it look like I'm thinking about the muscles? Absolutely not. Thinking about the Kardashians, not muscles. All jokes aside, I'm going to add this. I'm actually going to sculpt in a contour line. And keep in mind, please, if you're doing this yourself, I have back face masking on. So that's why it's doing that. Notice my contour line is on the outside. I'm going to put a contour line in here. I like to do that with a nice little curve. And then a straight line up and down. Once you know how to work with the program, you know how to sculpt. Look at that. I'm creating a lot of form that, you know, may not be easy to describe, but it's happening there. You got to put the knee up. This is the knee. So that means these forms have to go up. That's better. Da-da-da, da-da-da-da. Anybody here have trouble sculpting feet? Feet are shoes. Main plane. Get the front of the shoe. Get that to sweep back. And then get the heel. All right. Sculpt through the ugly. Some perspective on. And then a little bit to separate the toes. This back part, the calcaneus, is a little bit more. I always remember sculptor Sabin Howard. When we sculpt the calcaneus, he was telling me in this Apollo that he did, he spent I think it was a month? I mean, that seems a little crazy, but Sabin's pretty intense. Just sculpting the calcaneus, trying to get it to match what he wanted. Notice I'm doing this super low resolution. This is going to be very painful for some of you. So, divide if you need. I just don't have that need. You want to get comfortable with crazy. Look at that. It's horrible. All that is I just haven't sculpted the soleus coming into the fibularis. So it's a contour right here that I'm missing. And that's what I want you guys to be thinking about, is just think of contours. And then I'm going to pull that back. Is anybody feeling the Bridgman? I'm feeling the Bridgman vibes. But those hands, ugh. Get a little bit more of that wrist in there. And we got some contour this way, but we didn't get contour this way. So let's build a little bit of that. And maybe it's disingenuous to say I'm no longer sculpting atelier style, because I actually am. I'm building the contours now with the brush. So, but it's, you know, it's important to have enemies, even if you have to make them up. So we're just going to make up clay sculptors. Clay is our enemy. Digital sculpting will rule the universe. I'm doing now the scapula. I'm doing it quite poorly, actually. The scapula I like to see as just like a square shape. All of this has to move forward in order for that to work. Ah. And right now, what we are doing together is getting a sense of anatomy and form, building this kind of, ultimately what's going to be a kind of a simplistic figure. And then at the end, once I feel like I've got something reasonable that has helped, hopefully has helped you, I'm going to then go in and start just having fun. And when I start to have fun, it's going to be much harder to explain what I'm doing. I just won't know. So there's an instructional phase, and then there's going to be a fun phase, where once you know how to play the instrument, you get to just play. All right, I'm going to pause for a second. There's a lot of really interesting things going on here that are resolved and not resolved. And so this is quite fascinating, I think, of a place for me to stop. And for you to give me some questions. You know, there's a lot going on here. I'm paying attention to forms. So I am separating deltoid from bicep. This is dangerous. I'm separating the rib cage from everything else, right? I haven't built the juncture yet. This is dangerous. There's a lot of danger in what I'm doing right here, but I'm a professional, so I don't want you to worry. There's going to be no sculptors harmed in the filming of this. I know what I'm doing. I've done it before. But if you're following along, a lot of stuff can go wrong here. Partly why I'm showing this is because this is how people think about sculpting, is they break it up into these components. You need to be able to visualize the upper arm as a cylinder. Okay? And then you need to be able to have tools and strategies for what do you do in the joints. Joints, interconnections, where bones connect, body parts connect. This is the most important area that you can focus on to level up. How things connect. Everybody learns about something, but they don't learn how it connects. It's easy to learn about the bicep, but how do you learn how the bicep flows into, or sorry, I should say, under the deltoid, but over the bicep? Like, how does the pectoralis come over here? That's understanding joints, and you need to have a strategy for that. So I'm going to show you my strategy. And my strategy, just like in the back where I have a square, what I do is I build up a square. Largely square. Once I've built up that square, then let's make sure it lines up. Nipple line. Once I have that, then I build in a wedge. Okay, and so I'm gonna try a little trick. Sometimes it helps me explain these things when I use this mask, so that you can see, this is the strategy. Let's mask it like that. Sorry, I need that angle. Now, from that, then I can start to talk about what's the front of the, don't do that, Ryan. Sorry. I'm going to try to leave this with a lot of problems. I'm trying not to solve too much, because I end up solving it relatively quick, and then we miss the whole point. And then now I'm going to solve this arm. And then after that, I'm actually just going to go gangbuster, and I'm going to quickly resolve all of this. Because, your brain is only going to absorb so much. So right here, what I'm going to do is sculpt a cylinder. Not even focused on muscles right now. Just focused on sculpting a cylinder, cylindrical form. And I'll just let those forms interpenetrate each other a little bit. Build them up together. And not worry too much just yet about who connects with who. Straighten that line. See how that cylinder? I need that line to move in. So see how I'm straightening that? Get that scapula a little bit more accurate. We're going to get the lat. This now becomes all connective kind of tissue that we start to build here. These are all, let's put C7. And so now I'm going to go a little bit more gangbuster. Before I do that though, just capture a little cleaner silhouette. All right. Get those arms out of the way. I'm going to start to fill in external oblique, triangle, not the triangle, but the inverted V of the lat coming down. Still need to account for the lumbar section, so you see me carve it in a little bit. And then getting the external obliques around to the front. The abs and the beer belly all sit in front of the external oblique. So push the external oblique back, have the abs be front. This is going to give me the 8th rib. The 8th rib, super important. That tapping is probably pretty loud on the screen, right? I'm going to find the 8th rib and I'm going to really give that some love. The 8th rib is this is what I learned from Saban, one of the forwardmost projecting points. So really get that to push forward. And if you want a strong Superman character, right, like that's how it works. He has that strong shape. All right, now let me carve in a few things that just help me as a sculptor. Pectoralis doesn't have a lot of mass at the mandible. Not the mandible, sorry. Manubrium, top of the sternum. So it's just really good to sculpt that form a little differently. That got out of whack. Let's get a cylinder for the neck. Let's get that cranial sphere. See how much faster this is than if you were working in clay. Of course, you miss a lot of detail that you would get if you were working in clay. Ultraman. Jaw. Orbit of the eye, frontal bone. Occipital in the back. Now let's get the shoulder. I like to create the shoulder as a skirt. It's a good thing it's saved. I haven't saved. Whew. All right, how are we doing, guys? Guys and gals, how are we doing? Are you seeing some of the potential? I think we're going to do we got to do the thighs. But are you seeing the potential for starting to think about the form with this contour-like centered approach? And building up this sense of the massing. I'm checking the comments right now. So I'm just looking off to the side. Dapper, talk about forgetting what you have learned to further progress. Mostly when I say that, I can't remember exactly what I was saying, but mostly when I say that, I'm talking about the sculptor eye is not a normal eye. A sculptor eye sees form, and they see 3D, which doesn't have a ton of survival benefit. We were probably in the caveman days, sculptors were probably those people that they would put on watch, or they're starting to get into the engineering perspective when we could detect weak surfaces. I don't know. Our particular wiring, brain wiring, I'm sure was useful, but in today's world, it's a little different, right? And so the capacity to think in 3D like this is not normal to most humans. And so most humans, they need to forget eye is a hieroglyphic, and they need to realize that the eyeball is an eyeball with a piece of clay draped over the eyeball. And that's, that's the long and the short of it. Let's check our perspective. Yeah. So he's not looking very heroic. He's looking a little, dare I say, pedestrian. I'm going to move the bicep. The contour for the bicep is more in, right there. Deltoid is already kind of taken up a lot of form. All right, and these are all things that you learn when you get in and you start to study scans. So let's bring in my scans. Let's save this. All right, let me just see. I think actually I can find them here in the recent. I'm going to bring in all the scans that you get with the course. That's annoying. Torso, reference, 3D models, deliverables. That must be the OBJs. This is part of the project where we have these models that match the scans and some photo reference. Some of this is from photo reference, like this one right here. And then we've got the Michelangelo one, which is harder than you think. Dude it's pretty amazing. And so the idea with these is that you have a base I've given you that you then complete, and it just makes your life a little bit easier. Let's go ahead and turn expose off. And give me 1 second. I just need to look off of this and find out where these guys are. Let's see, torso. It's all OBJs. That does not make sense. Scan set. Oh, the scan set is a ZPR. Okay. I don't want that. I want a ZTL. Why would you do that to me? 1 second, guys. Just finding a ZTL, not a project. All right, well, I saved this, so I'm going to have to open up the Z project. All right, so these are all the scans that you're given along with this course. So this is all the different variety of form, that we're able to get in and explore. All right, and so what I want to do is save these all as a, whoops. Don't save it with expose, like it just bakes in some weird stuff. So we're going to save this and say scan set. Give it a second to save. All right. Load our scan set. All right, so now the intellectualization, the rubber's going to hit the road. That's the general idea here. And so let's pick this one. And I'm going to take my model, and I'm just going to append that scan. I think it's small, so let's just unify it. Oh, our scan is not the right size. So let's go ahead and take our scan, and I'm going to duplicate that and then unify that one so I don't mess with anything else. Cool. All right, let's turn split mode on. And we'll use the scan to help us understand some of the form, right? And so specifically, let's rotate that ever so slightly. Do you see pit of the neck, C7, pit of the neck, C7. All right. Now, break it down into planes. Okay. Notice that there's a shelf after the teres. It's called the teres major. We don't have that shelf. We just built up all of that form. So now we get to sit down and look and ask ourselves, like, all right, well, do we want that? And for the sake of argument, I'm going to model it a little bit more after our slightly thinner, though still quite athletic individual. And again, these are all scans you get, right? Because this is what I think, one of the things I think is really powerful about the class is we're really focused on creating almost like an atelier program that you can work with. All right, now, he doesn't have the same shelf that I put here. This is more of a superhero affectation. But now I'm going to I'm doing less intellectualization, and I want to pull from reality a little bit more. That means I'm paying attention to rib cage. You see how I've got a straight line? I'm going to now put rib cage oblique, and keeping mindfulness of that level of attention, I think, is pretty important in this. It's also one of the benefits of sculpting an écorché is you actually learn exactly how that oblique connects to the 10th, 12th, 11th rib. Let's hide the arm. Notice how there's this bulk. And that bulk is separate from what we seem to be seeing with the external oblique. And that's separate from what we see with, this is serratus anterior and rib, right? So if you were here yesterday, we talked about this in the nose. This is the benefit of écorché, and it's really the focus of the class, is that you learn how to see these distinct parts. and start to turn them into, not like what's going on. You're actually capturing the form as it's structurally built. Yeah. And we get that external oblique to connect to the 9th rib, then the 8th rib. I'm going to carve in here. I want the external oblique to connect, but I need to have a place for the rib and the serratus anteriors. And then the lat to overlap all of that. And we use the scan because it helps us see. Right now, I don't have that form. So I need to carve this in and then let these back muscles, the longissimus, the iliocostalis, I'm going to let them have their bulk. Have you ever struggled with just trying to figure out why is it looking too simple? And the reason it's looking too simple in your work is because you're not looking at cross sections like this. Maybe you don't have photo reference, you don't have the life model in front of you, right? There's a million different things, and that is what we try to resolve with having these models here, right? Like you're starting to see now we went from this intellectualization to now we're going into actual knowledge. I had a sculptor say to me once, garbage in, garbage out, right? And so that is so true. You've got to really pay attention to your reference, to all of that stuff. Sixth rib is going to sneak in underneath that, or is that the 7th? I don't know, but let's go. There we go. Maybe the move brush to get that a little. Okay. The ab is going to go over the rib, but don't let that fool you. Let's start some of that leg. At the very least, just start to fill some of that form in. Almost done with some of this leg. Okay. What is going on? There's some crazy loud sounds outside. Hold on one second. Okay, and one more second. Okay. Get a little bit of that deltoid. Sorry, it's not the deltoid. Is that the I'm just losing my brain right now. When I get into this state of sculpting, I start to think less about anatomy, like words, and it's a different kind of world. Not to mention I got some people making a lot of sound outside. Okay. All right, I'm close to wrapping up this part of the crazy with hopefully a sense from you guys of some cool ways to think about building form, right? And we haven't built the lower arm. We haven't paid a ton of attention to any of these. So we will. In the class, all of this gets covered, but today in a live, I think I'm going to just do a little bit of work and then jump into the next phase of what I want you guys to pay attention to. This constructive phase, though, and the process that gets me there is really the key thing I want you to be paying attention to. So let's just pause for a second. Voila. All right. Let's talk. Questions. Give me a quick yes, no. How's it going? Lawrence, I like the planar structure of the glutes. Warium, you're welcome, if I'm saying that correctly. Warium's Art Studios. Mike, Mike is telling me something cool. Oh, cool. That's a new feature in ZBrush I didn't even know existed. Load tool from project. Thanks, Mike. That's a neat recent thing. Probably for exactly the problem I had. Rick, sculpting movement in figures is your biggest issue. Is his biggest issue? I got it. Der Hoffman, how long have you been studying anatomy? Since I was born. I was born this way. No. 30 years? Seriously? 3D Storm, is your course going to be live or recorded versions? 3D Storm, you missed the beginning of the session where we went through and talked about all of that. So this will all come back through and you'll be able to watch the beginning to see what this is all about. But it's pre-recorded, so that's why it's at the price that it's at. And then we meet in the Discord and chat, and I'm in there answering questions a lot. All right. Any more questions, guys? Please put them in there. So at this point now, what we have done, because process is power for me, and how long are we at? We're at an hour and a half. At this point, what we have covered is we've covered the grid. No. We've covered the figure grid. That's the 2D. And then I built you a grid figure. That's 3D. Okay. And then from there, we started to build via the contour massing. Right. And then we started to, I love this. Started to intellectualize, if I'm spelling that correctly, the figure, the form, and we started to go, off track. Right? Then we brought our reference in, and then we started a process that I talk a lot about in the course, which is we go in there and we are establishing planes plus our anatomical notations. And that's why we're looking at the back right now. Right, this is all anatomical notations. Notation, 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 notation. They all correspond to something, but they may or may not be in the same, in the right relative position. So this is a little bit of a problem that we need to kind of sit and worry about. Okay, that's all process that I think is kind of important for us to be thinking about. Now, the next thing we do, we can either get in and start to focus on one or more parts of the body, like some part of the torso or something like that. Or we start to get in and sculpt something else. As we do that, hold on, there we go. Let's clear out. I do think it's important for me to talk to you guys about, where does all of this go? What is it that we can do, with this? And so I want to show you guys a project. Remember, this Kingslien.art, this course, you got 3 days of enrollment. After 3 days, I'm off to Rome, so I'm going to be in Rome and Pietrasanta, and I'll be talking to people in Discord there, and I'll be marble carving there. But enrollment's going to be done. So make sure you get yourself in. If any of this is exciting or interesting, the price only goes up, and it just gets harder to get access. My current assumption is that Kingslien.art is not going to be open again for this class for 2 months. Next month we might do a live drop, but this one I think is going to be a moment before I get back into it. And so now, that done and said, not too long ago I got to work on, a project that was really near and dear to me. Let me see if I can find it here quickly. No, we won't. Okay, but let me show it to you on these guys. So this is I'm gonna switch the screen here in a second. This is arguably a little like we need the whole thing. In order to understand this, you need to see the entire thing. So this is my son with a teddy bear, and I'm in here carving this. And so this is part of a whole series that I've got. My daughter, the one I want for my daughter is she's holding the decapitated head of a teddy bear. So you can see it here. I sculpted this in ZBrush, and then marble, you have to go in and you have a lot of work that you have to do to finish this. And so that's what you see me doing in these series of videos. There's both the carving, and then there's the rasp, and all of that good stuff. They messed up on the face, so this is taking a lot longer because I have to figure out what I'm going to do in the face to make that work. But you can see the teddy bear in the back. But this model, let's go ahead and see if I can find it. It's probably best I don't search through all of that right there. Let's go Sculpting Studio. Impossible. I was thinking of a series, and this was just called An Impossible, Indescribable Beauty. So let's go. Yeah, it's going to load here. It'll take a moment. So that's Audie. And I've sculpted him. Let's turn solo off. You can see his teddy bear. And his teddy bear's got the boxing gloves, right? So that's him, the fighter. Teddy bear's carrying it all, and it just talks about, like, number one, he is a fighter. So it's pretty crazy. But look at all this, like, sculpting and form that we were working on, trying to get this to kind of work, for a series. My daughter, hopefully, she becomes this one. Let me find Perseus. All of this is sculpted inside of ZBrush, and then 3D printed. I rework some of it in clay, and then we get it off to the CNC machine to take care of the, I'd say 80% of the work. It's not really, it takes a long time after that. Okay, 1 sec, this is almost. Oh, this one's 3 gigs, so it'll take just a second. Could have showed you an earlier one. Doing something fancy here. I don't know what that's all about. Okay. So now this is based off of 2 sculptures. One is from Bologna in Florence, and you can see Medusa's head right there. And then the other one is from Canova, where you can see him here. And so I loved these ideas, and the whole principle behind this, you can see the teddy bear, is that it's just the destruction of innocence, which they're literally doing themselves. Kids do themselves. I guess it's the mechanism. But they destroy that whole sense of them as these wonderful little creatures. And then they get a little monstrous as they develop their independence. And that's one of the things that I really wanted to capture in this series. And so now this is the next one, but we haven't figured out the problem of what to do with the head, the arm, because the marble can't actually support that. So I have to figure out something else for it. And we're going to do my daughter, so then I have to deal with nudity issues and coverage. So there's a bit more to be done to make that work. But again, all of this is a digital file, and then at the end of the day, that becomes a 3D file that you can see me then messing around with and sculpting on top of, right? There's a lot of great, crazy things that you can do now with digital sculpting. I know I have a friend, Martin Whitfoot. Let's say, where is he? Martin. He actually has a class in Blender where he talks about how he sculpts these characters and then paints them. So really cool. You see this, amazing painter, and he's using digital sculpting to envision paintings and try to get a sense. This is one of them. If you can see, he's got a class at Smart Art School, I think is what it's called. I forget. Digital sculpting has so much potential for today, in today's world. Why did that stop? Okay, there we go. All right, lots of stuff. Let me just check questions. Mateo, you're absolutely welcome. All right. So we are now at an hour and 45 minutes. I feel like I have gotten most of what I wanted to get across to you guys. Sorry, let's go. No. This one. I think let's leave the rest of this for the next live, which we are going to have tomorrow. Let me get you guys where I need you. Okay. So, yeah, let's call it a day. Shall we? Shall we call it a day? Almost 2 hours. Yesterday was 3 hours. I think we'll take this next step that I wanted to take today. We're going to actually take this on Saturday, I think, where we get in and we take the figure in movement and we start to actually move it and sculpt something using the stuff that we just learned today, which is the massing, the silhouette, looking at the rib cage versus the pelvis. And we're going to look at all of that Saturday morning, sculpt something with minimal reference and see if we can make it believable and, and cool. And then on Sunday, we're going to just make a head from imagination. Tomorrow, we're going to actually sculpt a head, and we're going to talk about the planes of the features, the nose, and the mouth, and we're going to talk about how you build all of that stuff, which is something that we cover inside the course here, where you're going in and learning how to construct the écorché of the nose, and then you're learning how to sculpt that, copying the ancient Greeks, who, in my view, they still have no parallel. There's nobody's getting there, and nobody's getting there anytime soon. This looks simple. This is not, and that's one of the things I unpack in this, is getting a lot of the subtle nuances of what they've done. Is pretty. It's a great exercise to do. All right, so thank you guys for being here. Questions? Put them in chat. I'm going to be right here figuring this out for the next minute or two with you guys. And then make sure you get over and you enroll at kingslien.art for the course. Again, you can see 3 days left. Not a lot of time, folks. It ends Sunday night. Monday is too late. Sunday night is the time. Like 9 o'clock my time. I don't know, but don't wait until the last minute, because once it's done, I'm not even in the country. So I'm not going to be able to answer emails and get you guys links and stuff like that. All right. It is 4 courses. It's the complete course series for anatomy for the artists. This is something that when it's all done, it's going to cost maybe $400, maybe $500. And it'll be worth it, right? Like I'm going to give you guys a ton of content. It's going to be worth massive amounts of workshops. I'm going to put everything that I know inside of this, and you could just once this is done, you could just get this course and take no other and just spend a year on this, and there is no chance that you would not become, just super solid and a rock star. So, I look forward to seeing you guys there. And thank you guys so much for being here. Thanks for coming out and joining me. I know you guys all got busy lives and that you've got stuff that you got to do. So I really appreciate you showing up for me here and taking part in this. Okay. All right. Have an amazing week. Amazing rest of your day. I'll see you guys there. I'm just going to put the screen on. I'm going to stay in chat and to make sure everybody's in good shape. Fetid, do you find nudity to be an issue? I think nudity's always been an issue, right? The medieval era, nudity's always an issue. Nudity's an issue, you know, because it's an issue in personal life. Like, people don't go around naked, so I get it. It's different in America than it is in Europe, obviously. It's different in Europe than it is in other places. Different in Europe than it is in India, right, where my wife's from. So, but that's one of the things that we get to play on as sculptors, I think. Miguel, you are welcome. Teresa, you are welcome. Punching Ninja, thanks for being here for a second day, man. Really appreciate it. Fun and Masty, thank you so much. Yeah. All right, guys. You know where to find me if you need me. Thanks, Kevin. Take care. Thanks, Ashton.